Do I like teaching English? I hope so because that's what I do for a living. But more seriously, I want to talk about the things that I like about teaching English and the things that I don't like. Of course, overall, I like teaching English, obviously. Okay. I'm not trying to sound like there are many things that I don't like about it, but there are some things that I don't like about it that can give us some pretty good lessons in terms of just language learning in general. I think that you'll find this video useful, specifically when I talk about the things that I don't necessarily like that much about teaching English. I'm going to talk about what I do like first, but I'm going to spend most of my time probably talking about what I don't like to try to give some lessons from those negatives. But don't get me wrong, overall, of course, I like teaching English. Okay. I'm just focusing more on the negatives in this video in order to give these lessons. Okay. So, who am I? Well, I'm Connor, like most of you know. By the way, before I continue on, click on that little bell so that you get notified when I put out more videos, because I know you all love using these videos to practice your listening. Okay. So, who am I? I'm Connor. I'm an English teacher. More specifically, nowadays, what I do with most of my working time is I create content for English learners like you, I assume, if you're watching this video. So that's what I do nowadays with most of my time. However, in addition to that, I've given thousands of classes, one-on-one classes online. So I've got a lot of experience just doing that type of English teaching. Okay. I've also given some classes offline, but the vast majority of my classes have been online. Obviously, I have this YouTube channel. I've got my podcast, which is bigger than this YouTube channel. The podcast really is the main way that people discover me. But I hope some of you found me just through my YouTube channel and not through the podcast. That's pretty cool. In case you didn't know, I have a podcast called Listening Time. So you should go check that out. The link is in the description below the video. And of course, I have my training that I offer through my membership, right? I do listening practice seminars and English pronunciation seminars and sound training videos. So I focus a lot on the sounds of English, whether it's listening or pronouncing the sounds. So I do all kinds of teaching. I've had a lot of experience teaching through different formats to different types of people for different purposes. So I've got a lot of experience teaching English, and I'm very thankful for this career that I have. I like language learning in general. It's a hobby of mine. I do it for fun. Now I also do it for my job, kind of, because I'm trying to get better at language learning and explore different techniques and see what works, what doesn't work as well, so I can give better advice when I talk about language learning. Because in a lot of these videos and in a lot of my podcast episodes, I talk about language learning. I don't just talk about random topics. I do talk about many random topics, especially in my podcast, cars and hobbies and stuff like that. But I talk a lot about language learning. So I don't want to just be guessing when I have theories and ideas. I want to try them out as a language learner myself. So I love language learning. So I'm glad I can be in that world in terms of my career, right? I help people with their English. I like English in general. I don't just like language learning and foreign languages. I actually really like English. That was always my best subject in school. I was always a good essay writer, and I've always liked the mechanics of language. My mom was an English teacher, an ESL teacher, and she kind of passed that down to me. She kind of helped me have an interest in grammar and things like that, the things that most people probably wouldn't care about or don't like. So I like the mechanics of English and languages in general. I like grammar. I love pronunciation. It's one of my favorite things. Is like the sounds of English and the stress system of English. That's why a lot of my training in my membership is focused on the sounds, because let's be honest, this is something that most English teachers avoid, or they don't address it as much as I do, let's say. Like, I've made a career out of, the sounds of English, whether it be listening or pronunciation. Pronunciation in particular is something that many teachers just stay away from because it's really hard. It's very complicated in English, but I love this. So I love that part of my job, that I get to help people with their pronunciation in particular. If you want help with your pronunciation, make sure to sign up and become a Listening Time super member or any of the higher tiers, and you'll get my pronunciation training, my English pronunciation seminars. So I love that part of it. Overall, I'm just very thankful that I have this job. It's super interesting to interact with people from all around the world. I love that about teaching English. I should say I have had up until now students from over 80 different countries, I think. So that's a lot. And then in terms of who listens to me through YouTube or my podcast or whatever, there are probably people in every country around the world, or maybe not every country, but 90% of the countries around the world, probably. There's at least one person that has listened or to my podcast or watched one of my videos. So it's super cool to interact with people from all over the world. You just learn a lot. I'm much more knowledgeable about other countries than the average American, let's say, because the average American doesn't ever need to learn things about other countries. I do. I've had to do that for many years. So it's cool. I just have a more complete overall view of different cultures and geography and things like that. I love that. I like conversation classes. I like teaching through conversation. I shouldn't really say teaching, because I'm not necessarily teaching them that much. I'm letting them practice with me, and I give them feedback and good questions and things like that to help students practice their conversation. I really like that. I like the format of conversation classes. It goes well with my philosophy of language learning. I think that when the person is ready to speak, it's great for them to have classes with a native speaker who can adjust to their level, manage a conversation well, help them fill in the gaps of their speech, and give them feedback, and just give them a good place to practice, right? So I like that. Like I said, I really like helping people understand the sound system and the stress system of English. If you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say the stress system, you're in for a surprise. It's a whole world of very interesting things, in my opinion. Maybe for you, they're just annoying, but for me, they're interesting. All these little reductions that we make in our speech as native speakers because of stress, because we're not stressing a certain syllable, we're reducing it, and we're leading up to the next stress syllable. For a lot of you, you probably don't understand anything that I'm saying right now. So I recommend that you give my pronunciation training a try, right? Sign up for those seminars. I'm sure that they'll be really helpful for you. You'll learn more about this stress system that we have in English and why your English probably doesn't sound like a native speaker's English because of the fact that you're not following the stress system that we have. So I love helping people understand the sounds and the stress system of English. I love making free content that I know will serve as a useful tool for people's listening, because I do this as a language learner. When I had a lower level in French, for example, I consumed podcasts that were made specifically for listening practice, where the level was easier. They gave the transcript, right? It's basically what I do with my podcast. And I know how useful this content is, especially because you can see how many people use it, right? If you look at the download numbers, and obviously I get comments from people every day talking about how helpful it is for them. That's amazing. I love that part of what I do. The fact that I'm creating content that will probably stay there forever or a really long time, and people can use it to practice their listening, because I know that works. I've used it for myself. So I like being able to create content that I know will be valuable for that purpose. So I love that. And there are plenty of other things I like about teaching English, but I want to hurry up here and get to the negatives so we can learn some lessons. All right. So there are many, many things I like about teaching English, and there are way more positives, but there are a few negatives, and let me highlight them. Number one, this one is not completely negative, by the way. This one is only partially negative. Number one is that when it comes to language learning, there are various philosophies about how to learn a language. People will tell you that you have to do this, and then other people will tell you that you have to do the exact opposite. And a lot of these philosophies contradict each other. Let's be honest. You've probably seen advice from certain teachers that contradict advice from other teachers, or advice from certain polyglots that contradict the advice from other polyglots, right? And that's frustrating because it's not entirely clear who's right and who's wrong, because if two polyglots have their different methods, the fact that they're both polyglots shows that their methods have worked. So that can be frustrating when it comes to teaching English, teaching any language, and trying to encourage students or listeners to do certain things, take certain steps in their language learning process, because you might not know if your system is the best one. And I've dealt with that over the years, where I give advice and I hope that it's the right advice. I talk about language learning and I hope that it's helpful. But I can't lie, there are other people, other teachers, there are polyglots, and I'm not a polyglot, okay? So I would say that if a polyglot is giving advice that's different from mine, you might want to consider their advice as well as mine. I think my advice is good, but of course, if there's someone who has succeeded to a higher level than me, then their advice should also be taken into consideration. But I think that different techniques work differently for different language learners. So maybe the people that listen to me find that my advice works better for them, but then there are other people that prefer to listen to this polyglot or that English teacher because maybe their advice works better for those people. So this is kind of a negative in the sense that I can't be very authoritative and just say, this is the truth, this is how it works, do this to learn English, and that's it, right? I can't really do that. Whereas you can do that with math, for example. You can tell someone how to solve an equation, and there's only one right answer, right? Or maybe there's only one right way to do it. That's cool because it's very simple. It's black and white. With language learning, there's this gray area. There's this unknown element because people contradict each other with their advice on language learning, right? So that's kind of a negative, and it makes me have to kind of I have to be honest with people. Like, people will ask me all the time, do you recommend shadowing as a technique? And honestly, I don't like shadowing. I've never done that. It's not interesting for me. But since I haven't done that, I can't tell you that it's not good because I don't have that authority to do that. So I have to kind of give the answer. It might be good. I don't know, but I don't like it. So I've never done it, and you can try it out. People don't like that answer, right? People, when they come to me for advice, they want a clear answer. How do I do this? Should I do that? But I can't always give that advice, right? Because of certain preferences or whatever. So a lesson you can take from this is that there is no absolute right answer. Even if I'm telling you what I believe to be true, it might not be true for you in terms of what works for you as a language learner. For me, movies and TV shows are not my thing for language learning. I've said that multiple times, but I get questions all the time about that. Can you tell me how to use movies, how to use TV shows? Because other people really, really love this, and I don't. So it kind of sucks because I can't really give good advice on that. So the process is different for different people. People have different preferences. And because I'm not the absolute authority, I can't always give good advice that's individualized, that's personalized for the person that's asking me that question. So that's something I don't like. And a lesson you can take from that is you're going to hear advice from everyone, and people are going to contradict each other, and they can both be right, but maybe they're both right for different people. Okay. All right. And one other thing about that, the reason why it's not a huge negative, I forgot because I said it's only partially negative, but it's also not a huge negative because I'm constantly trying to evolve in my own language learning process and trying things that I didn't used to like, but let me try them out. And then I realize that I like them, and then I start to recommend them. So because there's no absolute, yes, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, I am open to trying different things and evolving as a language learner and talking about it in these videos or in my podcast. So it pushes me to try new things. So that's kind of cool. It's helping me solidify my own personal language learning philosophy. But overall, it's kind of something that I can view as a negative. Another negative, I don't like seeing people get discouraged by how long it's taking them to progress and reach a certain level. And not just that, but they're not enjoying the process because of how long it's taking. They're just focusing on the eventual result, but they're not really enjoying the process, and it's taking a long time. And let me tell you, it takes a long time to learn a language to a high level, okay? I know you'll see videos of people saying how I learned blah, blah, blah language in 6 months, or how I learned blah, blah, blah language in 3 months. And yes, for example, an Italian speaker can learn Spanish in a relatively short period of time because of the proximity of these two languages. They're so close to each other that you're not starting from zero. You're starting from like 50% or whatever, or more, depending on how you look at it. That's a little different from an Italian speaker learning Arabic in 3 months or whatever, right? So you have to take all of that into account. And even if someone does reach a high level in a language in a short amount of time, just know that it's because they spent just hours and hours and hours every single day, and they probably had a really, really good reason to do so or a high level of motivation. I talked about this a lot when I talked about how I learned Spanish. I learned Spanish fast, way faster than the average English speaker would learn Spanish, but it's not because I'm talented at language learning, and it's not because I had the best idea about how to learn a language. It's because my reason was like the greatest reason anyone could ever have, or one of the greatest reasons. I was literally trying to marry someone, who spoke that language, and I was trying to move and live in their country, not among other expats, among other English speakers. No, literally just adapt and live that life in that country. And I had to, speak this language with the person that I was going to marry. So I can't think of a greater motivation than that. So if someone does learn very fast, like I did with Spanish, it's not something you can necessarily replicate because the situation made it so that the need was so great that it was like, it wasn't a normal language learning process. The average person who's learning a language that's not super similar to theirs, like Spanish and Italian or German and Dutch or something like that, the average person, it's going to take them a long time, okay? Don't underestimate this, right? It will take the average person years to learn a language. So if someone comes to me and says, "Oh, I've been learning English. I've been practicing so much. It's already been a year and a half, and I'm not where I want to be. I want to be at a really high level." And I tell them, only a year and a half? Because in their mind, that's a lot. That is not a lot in the language learning world, okay? Sure, it's a lot if you literally spend every hour of your waking life learning English. Okay, then that's a lot. If you're spending 12 hours a day learning English, who's doing that? Nobody. How many of you even spend 3 hours a day learning English? Probably not a lot of you. Probably very few of you, right? I'm guessing the majority of you spend like maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, and that's fantastic if you can spend 2 hours learning English. But maybe somewhere between 0 and 2 hours, right? You're going to need a long time to reach a high level. And I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm saying it to encourage you, because students or language learners will think, "Oh man, I've spent all year learning English," but in their mind, that's like a super long time. That's not, okay? You're probably doing just fine. It's just that people get discouraged by how long it takes. But that's the thing. Learning language takes a long time, okay? I haven't discovered the secret method besides getting married to someone who speaks the language. Besides that, I can't think of a secret method to just make it really fast. It takes a long time, okay? And so enjoy the process. One big negative that I have in terms of being an English teacher is that I see people not enjoy the process. They complain about how long it's taking. They're just very negative about that. And that's not a good thing, okay? The next thing, I don't like when students ask me if I can see their improvement. This is a very normal question, and it's not a bad question. But it's very hard for a teacher to tell a student exactly what improvements they've seen from them over the last 3 months or something. That's extremely hard, but it's a question you get all the time as a teacher. I got this question so many times throughout the years. And to be honest, I can't really pinpoint, I can't really identify the exact things that all these people are improving on. Because in my theory, a lot of you have heard this before. I use the word threshold. Like with each new phrase or each new word, there's a certain threshold. Like you have to hear the word 100 times. And then after that, it feels natural to you and you start to use it. But then this other word, maybe it will only take you 25 times. But then there's this other word that takes you 150 times before you can start to use it in your own speech. And each word, each phrase has a different threshold. We don't know where that is. So maybe a student comes to me after 3 months of classes and says, I can't see my own progress. Can you tell me if I've been making progress? And maybe they're, getting higher up and closer to the threshold of all these new words and phrases, but maybe they just haven't hit them yet. Maybe they're at number 77 and they need 80 repetitions in order to know this word, but they don't know that it's only 3 repetitions away. But 3 months ago, they were at 41. So they've gone from 41 to 77 or something, but they can't see the progress because they haven't actually hit the threshold, and now they can say that new phrase. Like, I think you get what I'm saying. I can't always see and identify all the words that people now know that they didn't used to know, and I can't see where they are on that threshold scale. And it's just really hard to be able to know, how much progress someone is making. It's a lot easier for you yourself to answer that question because you recognize your own mistakes sometimes, or your own issues with certain words that you don't know and that you learn them. It's easier for you as the student to recognize that. It's hard for a teacher unless they've been with you for like many years, or maybe you started with them from like a really low level, because it's easy to see progress from a low level to an intermediate level. It's much easier than seeing progress from a lower intermediate level to a middle intermediate level. So that's a question that for many teachers, it's like, I don't know. I can't tell you what progress I've seen from you. I'm sorry, but I'm sure you're making progress. So that's something that's a negative that I don't like. I don't like giving school-like classes where the student wants a program and they want to reach this level in this amount of time, and they want to do these activities, and they view it kind of like a school class where it's like, okay, first I need to learn this, and then I need to learn that. And in my philosophy, language learning doesn't work like that. You don't just learn the past tense and now you're good on the past tense and now you move on to the past perfect. That's just not how language works. It's not like math, okay? So it's hard when a student comes with that mindset because they view it as, all right, past perfect, done. What's the next thing? And unfortunately, that's not how it works. And so remember this. Learning English is not like learning math, okay? It is extremely different. It's so different you can't even imagine, okay? So I know you might think it's the same because, an English sentence, it's like a math equation. You like plug in the numbers or plug in the words. Yeah, theoretically, you're right. But try speaking like that. Try speaking to someone and having this equation sentence where you, definite article, boom. All right, next I need my subject, boom, next verb. Of course not. You can't speak like that. So it's not like math, okay? I would much rather have classes with someone that are conversation-based where I can help them fill in their gaps, the things that they don't know how to say, and give them feedback on what they said wrong and what they said or what they did right or whatever, and just let them have natural practice, engage in a real conversation with a native speaker, get excited about that. That's what I like. The school type approach, I don't agree with it, okay? And I think I had one more that I wanted to say. Yes, I don't like when people view their teacher, their language teacher, their English teacher in this case, as the one who gives them the knowledge of English, right? Because in reality, I'm not like teaching you English in the way that I might teach you something else. I can teach you little parts of English, maybe teach you rules of the language, but really you are learning the language more than I'm teaching you the language. And some people have this view where the teacher is just the one that's imparting their knowledge on the student, and they're just giving them the ability to speak a language, and that's not the case. Okay, we shouldn't rely too much on language teachers for things other than conversation and just content that you're getting. And I should say also pronunciation. One thing that's just really hard to work on your own for English, not as much for other languages, but for English, pronunciation is one of those things that's just really hard because of the stress system, as I mentioned. So that's why I make so much content about pronunciation, because that's one area where I do recommend that you use a teacher or use content like mine, because if you don't have that, it can be really hard to identify your mistakes and identify why your English doesn't sound like a native speaker's English. So besides conversation classes and pronunciation practice and just this type of content, like listening content, other than that, really, you're kind of working on your own. You're learning on your own. You're getting experience and repetition and consuming a lot on your own. You can speak even on your own, right? But yes, we want to use a teacher for conversation, for pronunciation practice, to get feedback, obviously. And of course, you can use this type of format content. I'm not teaching you here, but you're using it for your listening. So that's all good, but don't rely on your teacher to make you a good English speaker. That's just not the way it works, right? You will eventually become a good English speaker if you put in the time, you put in the practice, and you're patient and you wait a long time, right? But the teacher doesn't just give you that ability, okay? So that's one thing that I don't like, when people view the teacher as the person that gives them the ability to speak or to be good at a language, right? So I won't say any more. I said a lot of negative stuff. I'm not trying to sound negative, obviously. I just wanted to provide some important lessons from these negative things. Hopefully, there was one lesson or two lessons that you were able to glean from what I said here. Overall, I'll close out by saying this: making English content like I do is awesome, right? I know this content is helpful for people. It's the type of content that I like when I'm learning a language and I'm not at a high level of listening yet. So I like it, and I do enjoy giving conversation classes. I still give a couple, and actually, I guess I'll just say it now. I'm going to start giving a few more conversation classes. Attention, only conversation classes, not structured formal classes, school-like classes. No, just conversation classes. I'm actually going to start to give a few more conversation classes every week, starting next month, I think. I'll make the official announcement in a podcast episode. Probably not here. So make sure that you listen to my podcast episodes, because I think in the middle of January or something, I'll make that announcement that I will have a little bit of availability, a few slots each week for people that want to take a conversation class with me. But it's not going to be for the majority of you. Just when that episode comes out, go listen to that episode and I'll explain everything there. Okay, so I will start to give a little more classes like I did in the past, just a few more, right? So I'm sure I'll run into some issues and have some experiences with these negative things that I mentioned. But overall, making English content like this is awesome. It's a really cool thing. I'm glad I get to do it. I hope that this content is super helpful for you. And if you want to support me, if you like this content, I would recommend that you just sign up for my membership for the lowest tier if you want, just $2 a month, and you'll get training You'll actually get my listening practice seminars, and you'll get my bonus episodes. Or if you really just want my training, you want my pronunciation training, or maybe you want my advanced episodes or something like that, then check out the other tiers of the membership. And it's affordable, okay? It's just a few bucks a month. So the link is down below if you want to check that out. And check out my US Conversations podcast. It's a super cool podcast where I talk to people from all around the country, native English speakers, and we have normal conversations at normal speed. And I provide you the transcript with definitions of key words and phrases that we use. It's super helpful. So that link will also be down below as well. All right. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you in the next one.